Hello, and welcome back to another episode of Critical Reactions with your host, Bryan. We're going to wrap up today with a special selection, which is where one of you tell me exactly what it is I need to check out. Today's selection comes at us from Michael. It says Kauan, Siiville Nousu. This track didn't make it for the Beauty Week, and I just could not let that slide. Doom post-rock originally formed in Russia, but I believe the band is now based in Estonia with Finnish lyrics. So let's dive into this. The track is Siiville Nousu. Let's see what Kauan is bringing to the table today. Yeah, those were the two key notes of our last run, and they're the only ones that are kept over here. This is classified as Doom post-rock. I get the feeling we're going to get into it later, but this is gorgeous. Yes. The two falling lines followed by the rising idea and that guitar. So good. It's a beautiful mixed emotion here where it's bright and uplifting, but there's a weight to it. One foot in the future, one foot in the past kind of vibe. Yeah, very chill drive as well. We have a bass kick on 1 and a snare on 3. Just really hanging back on that, allowing the song to just breathe and naturally exist, no rush. There were two notes back then, a doon 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 doon, and it was beautiful placement. I hope it comes back. I love how that back vocal transferred into the violin. Use of static or possibly rain right there, just to fill in the silence a little bit. Just gorgeous chord progression. very warm pads. I love being able to hear the physicality of the piano. All the percussive elements of pieces hitting each other. That one note barely even came out. The electronic sections are an interesting touch. I know we had the synth pads. Yeah, right there, that turn, the third chord. It's like having a happy cry. That's what this song reminds me of. Oh, there's a distorted guitar in here. Where'd that come from? It's kind of snuck in there. Ooh, yeah, that transition chord. Beat 4 of the second bar. I think that's, yeah, there we go. Um, yeah, just gorgeous. That would have been a perfect choice for Beauty Week. Um, it's interesting. Like I hear the post rock vibes, but I'm wondering where they where the doom part comes in. Obviously, it's not an aspect of this track in particular, but apparently, Kauan has made doom metal music before, maybe on this album, just not this track. Um, I'm like the post rock vibes I can see in this, even if a lot of this isn't what I would classify as post rock. But the doom metal vibes just aren't here at all. And I'm curious what happened to those aspects of the band. But let's dive into this. We got some cool stuff to talk about. First of all, it's the chord progression, right? I think this is the most important aspect of the song. Is the series of progressions that they have, and they do slowly change them throughout the song. It feels very similar from start to finish, but there are some minor variations in it, and it helps the song have a shifting identity to it as far as the emotion it's trying to convey. It occasionally focuses more on the positive side of our progression, and sometimes it shifts to the more negative side of the progression. And there at the end, we even had a fifth chord in our progression. It was the beat four of our second bar. It was such a short moment before moving into our third bar and our third chord. Um, well, our fourth chord in this progression. Um, and it just brings about this utter darkness that gives us a semi resolution in the middle of our progression before we get our full resolution, moving from bar four to bar one. And it's just fascinating to listen to it because it feels so very human. Which, I mean, we're talking about emotion, so yeah, I guess that's that's a good word to use, but it's super complex. I still by the end I couldn't quite place it. I think the best description I had for it was 1 foot in the future, 1 foot in the past. It's those happy tears, preparing, preparing your next step and the joy that comes with progression while still being pensive about that which has come before you. That's what a lot of the song felt like to me. Um, and a lot of that comes from the chord progression. But the thing about chord progressions is that they can lead into emotions. I mean, a lot of our emotional ideas come from chords. There's a reason we have the hyper usage of major and minor chords because they have a brighter and darker tone to them, respectively. But if you just use minor chords, you don't really end up with a sad song. What really helps to pull specific elements out of your chord progression is a melody. A melody by itself can be emotive. A chord progression by itself can be emotive, but if you want those really powerful emotional moments, you need to combine the two in a way where each of them can accentuate and support the themes you're going for. And that's where this really excels. It's not just great chord progressions that we have. We have these beautiful melodies as well that do their own job of stepping in and out of more positive and more pensive, more thoughtful feelings and vibes. Um, and it's not even just so much about picking the right notes for the job, but also about the way that the phrases are shaped in the melody. I'm not going to be able to talk about all of them. The melody for a lot of this is quite linear. There's not really many looping or riffs going on with our melody. But one of the ones that stood out to me was I don't know, 1.5 bar idea at the very beginning that was beautiful. We had two descending ideas. We had one that went down, it raised up a little bit, maybe a third, and descended again. And then we had two notes descend, and then a final bit that rose up. And it was just a beautiful moment of feeling, of having that tug of being pulled down and finding the ladder to get out at the end of it. And it's just a little micro component, but mixed with the chords that were going on, what came before it, it was just a beautiful micro story. And it's little things like that. It's not even the, minute long melodies that I really want to have you focus on if you listen to it again, but just the moment to moment ideas. This isn't really a song that well, there's two layers to this. When looking at the melody, this isn't a song that you want to view the forest. You really want to look at the trees here. You want to see the individual components, see the moments, right? If this is a song about what I felt, which was, looking towards the past and having those pensive moments while preparing yourself for the future, the trees, these little pockets of licks, these little musical concepts are the individual memories of the past. They are what have shaped you. It's important to pay attention to them individually. When it comes to the emotional resonance of the song, that's where you want to get into the forest a bit. Not so much about the gritty details, but just allowing the song to wash over you as a whole and exploring your own thoughts and feelings as you connect with the track itself. This is a song that works both on the micro and macro level. And to me, that's just phenomenal. Now, there's more to this song than chords and melodies, though. We have a lot of embellishing ideas. There are layers upon layers upon layers. We have a full-ish string section here. I heard a violin at least. We had female vocals that provided atmospheric concepts, opposed to our male vocals, I think, which were more of a lead melody kind of idea. We had a variety of synth sounds, both pads to just kind of expand out or add ornamental ideas onto sections we already had, but we also had more experimental electronic tones about 7 minutes in as well. We got a little playful with that before returning back to the more standard pads that we heard in the beginning of the track. There's a distorted guitar in here. There's a clean guitar in here. There's a beautiful piano section. I don't even know. This was interesting because it paired so much of the layering and multi-instrument usage that I really like out of classical music with sort of that emotive ambience that we get out of something like techno or post rock. It sits in a really nice middle ground, and I think that's why it works on both the macro and the micro level, because it does sort of bridge the two. Ambience really isn't about moving ideas; it's about creating an emotion. Same with post rock. It's about exploring an entire song rather than the nuanced bits of it. There are songs that work best when you just close your eyes, and you can certainly do that. But there's this other side of it that almost feels classically organized that works so much better for the more critical or attentive listening. And it really is the merger of these two. And I think the fascinating part of it isn't just that it sits between these two worlds, but that it does it so effortlessly. Like, there's no point in here where I felt the two ideas were clashing, even though they do utilize compositional techniques and typically require the listening styles of two completely different techniques. It's fascinating that they can come together like this and end up working so well. It's just, it's not a combination of things that I would typically marry, but it's, wow. It just works so good though. Fascinating. I mean, this is like trying to mix sleep music, resting music, relaxing music, and like deathcore or thrash or black metal or something. Like it's going to be really difficult to find that midpoint there. The purpose of the two songs, the compositional techniques of them are so far divorced that finding the middle ground of something that is simultaneously going to help someone relax and still have that intensity in it, it's just not something I would think is possible. And I know someone's going to be in the comments, I fall asleep to the heaviest of metals. Awesome. Most people don't, though. And that's what this feels like to me. Like the two things they're merging together are just so far opposites, and it's just bonkers that it works so well. I want to talk about the piano a little bit because I don't have a real piano. In fact, I've never had a real piano. I've played on some, but for the most part, my entire life, as far as piano playing, has been a keyboard. And the keyboard just, it relies on libraries, right? Whether it's built into the keyboard itself or you're running it through MIDI into a DAW, you gotta have a good library. And I'm sure there are some out there that emulate the physicality of a piano well. I don't think I have those libraries though. Um, and so to me, there's a very stark difference between when I use piano in my music and what I heard here, which makes me think that this is done with a real piano. And here's the thing that really stands out to me, and you might not even have noticed it. I tried to point it out during it, but I think it would have taken more words than I had time for. There is a percussiveness to playing the piano, especially depending on where you mic it. And I would wager that they might have had two mics here, one on the strings that vibrate and one on the keys. If you don't know, the reason that a piano has the keys right next to you and then there's this massive body behind it, if we're thinking of like a baby grand piano or something, uh, is because when you push the button, it actually causes a arm mechanism to swing a mallet down on a series of strings like a giant harp behind the keys, and the mallet hitting it causes it to vibrate. The keys are actually not making the music. They're just a tool to make the things move that do make the music. And so when you push the keys down, depending on what type of piano you have, there's going to be a moment where the keys, especially if you're playing heavy like it sounded like they were doing here, are going to bottom out. And they're going to hit the bottom of the bed where the keys are at. This bottoming out causes a really low resonant tone. It's a very wooden sound that accompanies the keys. It was picked up in this recording. It was added. It feels very intentional, and I absolutely love having that extra warm wooden resonance there. It's such a key aspect to the piano sound, but is so rarely integrated into digital piano sounds. We don't really hear it in pop music when there's pianos or anything like that. Um, and it's just I absolutely loved it. It makes me wonder how much of this was live recorded. There's quite a bit of instruments in this song, and I assumed much along the lines with the electronic sounds and the pads and those weird shrieks that it was all digital libraries, MIDI stuff. But given the attention to detail of utilizing, I think, a real piano, it makes me think that maybe the violin was also recorded live as well. And maybe some of the other sounds that I thought were electronic, but maybe weren't. But the attention to detail there really, it clues me into who they are. Most people would not care. Most people would mic just the strings, and you might get a little bit of that resonance, and maybe even your producer will try to erase it as well. It's not the piano sound, right? That's the strings vibrating, but it is part of the piano sound. I like that it just tells me who they are, what they want out of their music, um, and their understanding of instruments. And the rest of the song certainly tells me that about them as well. It is highly nuanced and intricate, but also rather simple in places. The band knows exactly what each section should be, how big it should be, how much of their instrumentation they should have. Much like some of the best classical music, it's not about using everything you have all the time. It's about knowing when you need things and how to use them for the biggest effect. And there wasn't a single moment in this track where I thought things are a little too big, things are a little too small. Maybe this would be better with some embellishing lines here. I really have no criticism for the track at all. It was gorgeous from start to finish, extremely cohesive, and just entirely resonant. I connected with it extremely well. That's more of a biased side. I'm sure there's going to be some people who didn't connect with it, and your experience with this track is no more or less legitimate than my first experience. But yeah, I have no notes at all. In fact, this is probably a song I'm going to study a couple of times and see exactly what they're doing and figure out what I would want to take away from it to incorporate into my own writing. It's fairly close to how I like to write, but it is more gorgeous than I think anything I've written, which it might just be a humble take of mine, but this is a masterclass as far as I'm concerned, and I don't think I've ever written anything that would be considered a masterclass. Not yet. And I'm just enamored to find these guys. Kauan. I need to listen to more of this. I really hope this is a full album. I also really hope there's more of this because that doom metal side is kind of uh I mean I like doom metal. I do, I think. I haven't really run into much that I have been has bounced off of me completely. But it's not why I would be listening to this. And I think that's the thing right there. That's the important part. I would want to listen to more of what we just heard. Which actually kind of wraps us back around to the electric guitar there at the end. Interesting choice. After this whole song was really created through meticulous crafting of layers, we went for a larger than life outro. The final minute or so was pretty much everything we had heard up to that point. In my understanding of the track, I don't quite know what this was meant to symbolize, but it was a beautiful peak for the song. It wasn't just a slow burn of layers until we had all our layers there. It was a slow burn of instruments. The ideas the instruments presented varied, but by the end of it, we still heard a very full band. Every instrument available was utilized, including an electric guitar that filled out a ton of the low end and provided a bit of bite, that compression, that buzz, that static of the distortion. That adds a completely different vibe to the ending. Interesting decision. I'm not going to say it's bad. Um, I didn't know they had an electric guitar on hand. I kind of thought maybe because they were described as metal, but 7 minutes in, no guitar. I'm not figuring there's going to be any, so it kind of caught me off guard a little, but it really works there as well. It's like I said, I don't have any criticisms for this. This is just so good. So with that said, we're going to check out some lyrics, but see, the thing is, I'm pretty sure this was in Finnish, which is what Michael had stated. So I think we're going to have to do a little bit of this translation stuff. Oh, there aren't a lot of lyrics to begin with. With any luck, we can get a rather concise translation out of this. Oh, the title of the track translates to Wings Rise, which could tie into some of the themes I was going on about. The red wound leaf, the wind raises its wings. Lightly leaf hovering, the gust of it throws it uplifting. Through the air according to translucent, the honeymoon calls the autumn wind off the ground to a height. Now this is a very rough translation, it seems. I want to run this through Deep L real quick and see if I get anything a bit more. Yeah, okay, so this is a little more straightforward, at least for me. The red wound leaf, the wind lifts its wings. So this is the same thing. We have a red leaf going through the air. The leaf floats because the gust of wind tosses it. There is this symbolic relationship between the two. The leaf does not float on its own. Gravity would take it. It's the wind that allows it to stay up. It lifts you up through the air with the translucent. The autumn breeze invites you to float from the ground to the sky. That's a much better. Those last two lines were the ones that made me think I needed to get a second opinion on this. And I really love that. The brown ash trees wishing you a good journey, upward on the wings till you reach the sky. So yeah, what the song had told me about this pensive, happy, crying kind of thing going on doesn't seem to be what they're talking about here. This is really about appreciating. Well, I mean, it could be two things. First of all, I get the appreciating nature kind of edge to it. Just going out in autumn and feeling the breeze and just enjoying the moment. But also, there's a metaphorical edge here that I can kind of read it as, no one accomplishes anything on their own. We all are. We all are where we are because of the people around us. And I really like that message. As the leaf, we cannot float through the air, but our support systems, our friends, our family, they're the ones who lift us up. And while the metaphor kind of falls apart at this point, we are also the ones who lift up our friends. And I really like that. I don't know if that's necessarily what they were going for, but also this idea of being who we are because of our past and the way that people have interacted with us in the past kind of brings me back around to that melancholic pensiveness about thinking about the history, but also the positivity of rising up to the sky, 1 foot in the past, 1 foot in the future. Might not be exactly what they were going for there, but I don't think it's that far of a stretch to tie these two ideas together lyrically, and it does fit how I felt about the music when I listened to it. Beautiful stuff. Those are my thoughts on Kauan's Siiville Nousu. Let me know what you thought. Did you enjoy it? Did you not? Do you agree with me? Disagree with me? Anything you'd like to add to what I said? Go ahead and put those thoughts down in the comments section. Above that, there's a description box, and in there's a link for Linktree. It takes you to this menu right here. Has links for everything related to the channel, You can find multiple ways to support the channel, a link to the Discord community, a link to my music, and so much more. Above that, if you could, like, subscribe, and ring the bell. I greatly appreciate all three of those. All right, that wraps it up for today. We'll be back tomorrow, 5 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, 10 p.m. UTC, as usual. We're going to finish up this week, check out our final unexpected favorite, and 2 creator requests. Until next time, remember to be critical, not cynical of the music you listen to, and have a fantastic morning, afternoon, or evening.